Who the Wild Things Are with Ryan McGuire.
You gotta listen to your body.
Oh my God, maybe, I could get out there, I could do this.
Let's take a ride, find your wild side, real stories, see with your own eyes.
It's so beautiful.
I'm gonna have the best time out here.
Yeah, I was in tears. I was just like, that's the best, man.
Welcome back to Who the Wild Things Are. My name is Ryan McGuire, and I'm here to bring you conversations with the most wild folks on the planet. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you enjoyed the episode, share it with a friend. Appreciate you guys. Let's get it going. What's going on, guys? Today's episode is brought to you by the fine folks at Blokes. Blokes is a men's health company that specializes in hormone health, weight loss, sexual health, longevity, all those sorts of things where you feel like something might be a little bit off. Blokes is here to help. They provide labs and blood work. They can help you test your testosterone levels or different biomarkers so that you can be at your best and show up as the ultimate version of yourself. They provide one-on-one health coaching and the ability to meet with a board-certified doctor in order to correct those things that might be going wrong in your body. If you want to get some blood work done, get your labs done, go ahead and go to blokes.co or check the show notes for more info. Once again, that's blokes.co. Also, get Blokes on Instagram. Thank you guys so much. Let's do the show. Well, Jess, thank you so much for joining us and making your way all the way from Washington.
Thanks, Ryan.
Great to have you here. And just I guess to kick things off, give people like a little bit of background about how you got into the skills community and what it is you're focusing on lately.
Sure. I actually took an ethnobotany course probably 10 years ago. And it was a year-long program with Karen Sherwood.
Okay.
She used to be Earth Walk Northwest in Washington State. And I've always been interested in plants. So that's something that's been a love of mine, was exploring wild plants. And but how I started Wild Kind Academy is a little bit different because I was actually a marketing director in Olympia, Washington. And during the pandemic, I lost my job because there was no shows to market, no live performing arts. And I found myself wanting to do something with that time when I was unemployed. I was certainly aware that the pandemic was having an effect on people in terms of feeling vulnerable. And I have always really been interested in sovereignty, living more sovereign, living with a sense of, let's put it this way. I used to be a prepper, full on. I actually went 10 years as what you would be like, building up food storage. My husband at the time built underground bunkers for a living. Wow. And I was living that life where I had just like everything you could imagine. This was after 9/11. Okay. To be able to pretty much survive anything in terms of what I had stored, from seeds for 10 years of gardening, being able to have seeds and tools and just stuff to be able to really hunker down and make it through any potential kind of cataclysmic threat in terms of maybe what society was doing. So, but I left that lifestyle. I had a divorce and I found myself kind of alone as a single woman, and I had to leave behind those kind of all of that stuff that was purchased to be able to handle a big turn of events. And I also found that I had a high level of anxiety. And at that time of my life, I didn't like to travel because I didn't want to go away from the safety net of what I had created. I had 2 young kids, and I just really didn't feel comfortable traveling at that time. And I had fear that just built up in my nervous system. And I really realized this wasn't a very healthy way of living. I wasn't living, I was hunkered down. Yeah. And I think the more I started to also gather gear, gather stuff, I really had this amazing accumulation of stuff. but how just tethered I was to it felt so uncomfortable. It just felt like its own weight, its own kind of gravity to have this property and being just tethered to it. I wasn't free. And my nervous system was filled with fear and a sense of dread and doom. And that's not me at all.
It's interesting because I wouldn't get that from you at all now.
You wouldn't. And I've worked hard to reprogram my brain.
How did you go through that mindset shift from prepper to more like naturalist?
So I did actually at the time of 10 years ago, whatever, I went through a 500-hour training through yoga and meditation. I just was like, this is my next step to really unwind what was going on in my nervous system and up in my brain programming. And that really helped to just really go inward and simplify and have a practice that was physical and allowed me to be more expansive in kind of energy. And after that, I went about my life, got jobs, did different things, had my marketing career, and then the pandemic hit, right? So this was like the next big thing to happen to our world from 9/11, I'd say, and that changed things. And so I'm watching people around me, run off to Costco and get their, food and toilet paper. Yeah. I actually ran out of toilet paper. I was like actually one of those people that, because I was like, been there, done that. I don't do this thing anymore.
Yeah.
I was like, had to call a neighbor and be like, I'm actually out of toilet paper.
But for real.
Yeah. Like good friends, you know who your good friends are when they come showing up, just like, got you. But anyway, I just didn't, it was triggering for me to be in the pandemic and see what was happening around me. And people are like, wow, there's this uncertainty of the food supply chain and there's this uncertainty with where this is going to go. And I just was like, well, I'm not doing what I did before.
Yeah.
I actually want to feel light in this time. I want to feel my own sense of peace and freedom when everything else around me is feeling so intense. And I went and took a wilderness survival training. I did that in Washington State. Just went out and spent 4 days and did a training. And I was like, that felt good. Just felt good to get out there and have some basic skills. And then I started doing things like fishing for the first time. I mean, I literally, you'll if you see my Instagram feed, I am fishing or doing something outside pretty much full time. But 4 years ago had never even done any of that.
Wow.
So luckily at the time I had a great mentor out of Idaho, Scott Turner, who really, he spent a lot of time teaching me how to fish, how to hunt. I had a experience of being in a blind bow hunting for antelope with him, and it changed everything for me. The first time we brought home perch out of the lake in the middle of the winter, ice fishing, and made fish tacos, I was like, oh my God, you can harvest your own food and it's great. And same thing with hunting. I think it just, the process of watching him take an antelope and helping him process that animal, and we put it all in the freezer, and having my first, antelope meat, I just was like, oh God, wild game and wild fish and wild foods where it's at. So it really started something in me. I went from, again, I wasn't employed at the time because of the pandemic, taking my job, and I had time. And so I wanted to take every single skills training class I could possibly take. And I didn't have the money to do that because I was unemployed. So I started Wild Kind Academy, which was a way for me to bring some of the best instructors to me and said, can you, and at the beginning I was like, hey, if you could come teach a class, I know how to market it. I can market, I can put it on, I have a great website. I've got great, I understand marketing a little bit, and I can put it out there for you. You just come and teach. And if I can take your class for free, that would be great.
Wow.
And that's kind of, so I started bringing great instructors to me, learn everything from, I actually partnered with a lot of the folks who'd been on the Alone Show, Ray Livingston and Nathan Donnelly and Joel Vanderloon, and where I was like, hey guys, like come teach a fire skills training, come do this, come do that, and blade school or this or that. And I just started taking classes. That whole first year, I just took classes from everybody that I could and brought them to Washington. Then I was finding that this is, I lit up as a person when I was doing these classes. Every time I learned a new skill, every time I made something from my relationship with nature, I just became lighter and happier and lifted, and people can see it in me. They're like, God, you're just a very different person than you used to be. You just, the joy is like within and without. It's just something that really lit me up. So I just kept going deeper. I've been a deep dive now for 3 years. Last year, I really went for it. I met Jason with the Survival University here in Colorado and came out, took his winter survival course from an instructor named Hutch, who's one of my favorite instructors of all time. And winter survival was super cool. That like opened up a whole nother level of, creating shelter in the snow and how to prepare for snow survival. And then I came back and I did his 50-day advanced woodsman course last summer. So I spent 50 days, made a primitive shelter, was taught those skills, how to do that. I think when we arrived, we were given a tarp and some paracord. And it was like, here's acres and acres of land. Go find yourself a spot, set up your shelter. Of course, I didn't really have a great skill set in knots yet, so my shelter was probably a bunch of bows. But I was able to set something up, and over the course of 50 days, we just took a lot of different classes, had a lot of different instruction from great teachers, and I lived completely outside for 50 days.
That's amazing.
And that ended with me doing a 7-day solo with just a knife. We were able to win back some gear by accomplishing certain skills, but at the end of that 7 days, it was unlike anything I'd ever felt before. And I knew I had found my freedom. I knew I had found my sovereignty, that no matter what's going on in the world, how did humans do it before they went to Costco? How did they do it? How did they get us here? And those are some of the things I'm starting to get to explore and feel, is my strength as a human. And really, I think aligning and stepping into the kind of the generational wisdom that's coming through when you get a lot of time in nature and a lot of time to feel.
It's so interesting to me that you were able to make that shift from prepper to this completely different person.
Totally.
Was there any inclination or reflex when the pandemic happened to be like, buy up everything, I need to stockpile, I need to go back to this kind of hoarder mentality of having all this food?
I did the opposite.
Wow.
I literally, I was so triggered by it, I did nothing. I was minimalist. That's why I ran out of toilet paper. Because I was like, I am not going there.
Yeah.
And what am I going to do to travel lightly in this time? And when I mean travel lightly, that's of mind, body, spirits talking. That's like lightly of heart, lightly of mind, and then lightly of stuff. It's like I'm going to minimalize all of this stuff as far as my needs. And so then it was, I found my joy in going for a afternoon forage, and I'd find abundance out there, and I'd make myself a nettle pesto, and I'd be like, I'd really sit with the abundance of that. And then, that year during the pandemic, I was able to harvest my first deer. And I gave it all away for Christmas. All that meat I gave away as Christmas presents, you know? So I just, that was a healing time for me. A lot of people had a really rough pandemic, understood. I think I had a wonderful pandemic experience.
Yeah. It's interesting how that happens. I think about it being like one of the best periods of my life.
Truly.
Which you almost want to feel a little guilty. You're like, shoot, should I be feeling this good about everybody, about this event that's causing everyone so much hurt? But once you get over that, you realize how much opportunity there was during that time period.
Absolutely. And I honestly, the platform of Wild Kind Academy became a wonderful way for my community to come together in the outdoors and learn together and be together in a time of isolation, in a time when people were feeling alone and feeling isolated, feeling like everything around them was crumbling down. I kept Wild Kind going and had classes. And we met outside because it's an outdoor education company, so perfect.
Did you have to like battle people saying that you guys shouldn't be meeting or
maybe
things like that? You just didn't pay attention to them.
But what I found, in fact, there was a moment that really had impact on me is I offered a basket weaving class. And I have this wonderful partnership with Karen Sherwood. I mentioned her before. She was my ethnobotany teacher, and she teaches basket weaving for our community. And so I had her out, and I had probably 15 women at that time that came out. I'm starting to get some men who come to the basket weaving. But I had about 15 women out there. We were at a state park in one of their covered shelters. And there was a woman who came to the class, and everyone was sitting respectfully spaced and such. But at the end of the class, here we are, we're in community, we're weaving. So our focus and our hands are engaged in the practice of just ancient, again, DNA memory of when people gather and do handwork together. And I think something was lit up in everybody there who is like I needed this. And by the end, I had one woman that came up to me, and she was a little teary, and she said, can I hug you? And I was like, oh, baby, like, bring it in, and we embraced. And it was, I think, the first hug she'd had in a long time, because especially in Washington State, there was a lot of energy around the pandemic and around isolation and mask wearing, and it was very intense in my state. And I don't think she'd had human contact in a long time, and so we held each other, we cried together, and then one after one I hugged everybody that wanted a hug. And to me, that became a really powerful, I guess, moment of like, okay, actually, I'm going to keep this thing going and bringing in as many people who want to come together as I possibly can. And anybody who wants connection, they'll find it here. Yeah. And now this becomes my purpose and like a new sense of understanding of what I'm doing and why. That it wasn't, skills training is like the foundation. And then within that is these layers of connectivity and feeling more alive and feeling a sense of renewed purpose and a sense of renewed connection at a time when we needed it.
Yeah, and it's a very special thing when you have it being female-led. I really think there's a place for that, because in survival skills, like, if anyone was to say survival skills, like, we all have this, like, flash image that comes in our head, and most of those people would be like a military gruff guy. Like, it's not the picture of Jess. And I just think there's such a space for that for a lot of folks that need it most, to learn from somebody that doesn't look like that hard military guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really exciting to welcome more women in outdoor leadership, for sure. And also welcome just anyone who even says, well, I'm not very outdoorsy. Yeah. And I mean, if I'm just walking down the street, I may not look very outdoorsy. I don't know. I think people laugh because I'll wear the biggest ass hoops I might be able to find sometimes when I'm in the outdoors. And then other women are like, you wearing hoops? And I'm like, sure am. Yeah. I really like the bling. And it's like, so I'm actually trying to also welcome anyone in who, that if there is some sort of look or image behind what it means to be a nature lover and what it means to be in connection with the wild, that doesn't necessarily have an image or a look. I'm hoping to welcome more people in. And I do find that I get a lot of women who come to my class and that are maybe, like, I'm here because if you can do it, I can do it. Yeah. And it's like, perfect.
It's such a relatable image, people are like, okay, wait, I can relate with how she looks. It doesn't feel as foreign, you know. It doesn't feel as like far off in the distance. It's like, that looks like someone I would hang out with, and she seems to be having a great time. Let me get involved in that.
Absolutely. And I, when I first got into this stuff, I think I was trying to maybe look and feel the part, especially because I was taking a leadership role. And now that I teach as well, I teach wilderness survival. I think I battled at one point with looking a certain way or fitting a certain role. And I even had a moment, in fact, the first year I was out hunting, I was all, I'm in all the camo, and and I was just weighted down with all my dude mentors who are like, you're gonna need this and you're gonna need that, and here's your, and I just didn't actually feel like myself. It wasn't really my. I realized it was like I was wearing a costume to go do a thing, and it's interesting because I was basically just not really having success. I wasn't seeing much animal activity. And I had a moment where I came back home. I took a bath. I was like getting centered and going, what feels so off about this right now and about me? And what came to me was, I'm actually not embracing the feminine right now. I'm trying to be a male hunter, and because that's all I know. And what if I were to bring in the femininity of me into this hunt? And so I brought, whether I needed it or whatnot, I just did some personal ritual. I braided my hair, and I splashed rose water everywhere instead of, they have these things that deter this or that. I mean, I just did what I needed to do to say, this is who I am. And I'm going to go out there and embrace that women have certain things, the way our brains work, the way our senses work, they may be different than men. And let's use that. Let's have that be the platform that I'm going to go have this hunt with, and feel intuition and feel, just get into who I am at my core, even on an energy level. It's not that I went out then and all of a sudden had this successful hunt. It's just that I was me, being, embracing the feminine in all of the ways that I download that, and it changed everything. So I do that with everything now in the outdoors. If I find myself out of balance, trying to be, bring a masculine energy to this work, it seems to, it's just not as effective as when, I think we all have a little yin and yang and masculine and feminine. I'm not saying that, any other thing than, when I am myself and I let the feminine come through, think the more magic happens for me in the outdoors.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me about your experience getting into hunting, because it's such it can be very intimidating. There's a lot to learn, and most of the people that you get as a hunting mentor are folks that have been doing this for 20 or 30 years, and their dad's dad did it, and they have, all of their rituals and things that it feels like you should already know. Tell me about getting into hunting as an adult and what that learning process was like.
It's not easy, but I was committed to putting myself out there, asking for help and seeking mentors. And I do think you need mentorship. My friend Johnny Mack, who has the Soul Seekers podcast, he has, I reached out to him because his whole program at the time in Washington State was about mentorship. I asked for support. I do think if you want to get into hunting as an adult, there is a real proactive role you need to take, not only in your own, first of all, you got to choose what kind of hunter are you? Are you a bow hunter? Are you a rifle hunter? What is it that you would like to hunt that, that feels like that this is going to be something you're going to want to commit to? And then you have your own discipline practice of saying, I decided to be a bow hunter. So for me, I found mentorship in, I want to learn how to shoot a bow. So I reached out to Joel Turner with Shot IQ.
I mean, one of the legends, just
that
like
was
super legend.
Totally. And it was, for me, right place, right time kind of thing.
Is he in Washington?
Yeah, and he's like
Wow.
lives an hour away from me.
Oh my gosh.
And I didn't know who he was. I'd actually reached out through somebody on Instagram who, had a bow shop, and I was like, I just bought my first bow. I want to learn how to shoot, and I want to understand kind of the practice behind the point of hitting the trigger.
Yeah.
Who would I reach out to? And he was like, "You're in Washington State. Joel Turner is your guy." And I happened to just meet right off the bat with someone who is, top of the game as far as training programs.
Are you shooting compound or traditional?
Both.
Both,
So I
okay.
started with a compound bow.
Okay.
And like everything that seems to happen when you get into this journey, once I got introduced to a traditional bow, I was like, oh, this feels so good. There's something about taking those wheels off.
Yeah.
And just being, having natural wood in your hand, being able to feel this more sensitive, again, intuitive piece about working with, the whole body, the whole mind, the whole spirit behind the shot. So it just felt, I have yet to, I have not hunted with my primitive bow, but I'm not ready for that yet, but
Sure.
I'm shooting it and I love it.
Yeah, I think I shot for 2 years trad before I went on my first hunting trip.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I knew, and I'm sure anybody who gets into trad later in life understands, you suck when you start out.
Of course.
You're just, no one's going to be able to be accurate from like a hunting range when you first start out. It is a practice that requires discipline and consistency. And I think what's cool about what Joel does is he focuses a lot on the mental component.
Oh, yes.
He does a lot of like mindset stuff, which I would really love to get someone like him in my corner and just like ask him, like, what is the mindset when you're at full draw and you're hunting the thing you've been chasing for years, and that moment that means so much.
Yeah. He was with me when I shot my first deer. He was a strong mentor for me.
That's amazing.
And so I was right. He was in the blind with me. And I have this moment, where I took the shot and I'm, all of a sudden the shaking started and I looked at him and he looked at me and we both were like, and he's like, you did it, you did it. And this excitement, and it was like, you nailed the shot, like you did it, and it just, tears, the whole thing, it was such a amazing moment to have that level of, someone next to me to be able to take that process through all the way. But I've taken a lot of classes. I took Joel Vanderloon's intro to hunting course in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
I loved, he really brings in a lot of the spiritual, kind of the grounding, that sense of that the hunt is something that, again, is ancient to us, and that there's a lot more to kind of explore with our relationship to hunting and animals and this whole thing. He brought in next level stuff for me that then becomes a lifelong practice of understanding the nature of who we are, why we're here, what, these things that really spoke to me. So it's a mix between, you're an adult, you want to learn how to hunt. First of all, choose what it is. Are you a bow hunter? Are you a rifle hunter? Start shooting.
Yeah.
Start shooting a lot. Take classes, take trainings. Then start reaching out to this hunting community, people who are out there. And there are programs that give you, that sometimes are nonprofit organizations that give you opportunities to come in. I know there's opportunities for women because we're women. There's opportunities for people of color because of, again, some of our just social dynamics that some of these nonprofits are helping other folks get into hunting. And then there's wonderful people out there, I think, right place, right time, and ask for help. Put it out there.
I've been getting that DM a lot, which is like, I think it's just, I put up like stupid little videos of me shooting my bow, and they're just like very simple. And a lot of people respond to those saying, I want to do this. I don't know why, but like they just see it. I think a lot of it is innate, and they get that like spark from somewhere within them. They're like, oh wait, I think I'm supposed to do that.
Absolutely.
And then I'm like, okay, do you want to shoot compound or trad? They're like, okay, go this way. And they're like, okay, you want to shoot trad? Do you want to hunt or do archery? And they're like, okay, I want to hunt. I'm like, okay, what do you want to hunt? And we just like go down this question tree.
Yeah, a little breakdown.
And then we're like, okay, now we have your thing. You want to shoot traditional. You want to hunt elk. You live in Nebraska, wherever you live, and then figure out, here's your plan. Here's how you're going to become a efficient, hunter. And here's the first steps and people that you can connect with.
Absolutely. And for me, I took it a step further. I again, because there's so much to learn, and most of these people have been doing it their whole lives and had their grandpas, showing them the ropes. And I've had a lot to learn in a very short window of time. And so I actually last year started working out at an elk camp with Upfront Outfitters. So I was like, hey, can I come in and I'll be like camp host, camp cook, whatever, just take me on, but I'd like to, be mentor me along the way. And so for me, I take those opportunities to go learn by getting a job, having a side gig that I can go be camp cook. But that week before the clients come in, I'm out with the guides, scouting with them, putting up trail cams with them, asking a million questions, just being out there tracking, scouting. And then when the clients come, I'm making coffee and hotcakes in the morning. Cool. But then when the clients come in at the end of the day after their guided, Roosevelt hunt, they're all sitting around the table talking about their experience, talking about what happened in the field, the shot that was missed, the shot, this and that. And I'm just taking it all in. And if any of them, when they do have a successful shot, then I'm out with my pack and I'm helping to process and I'm helping pack out. Yep. So I'm getting kind of this hands-on training, and I'm currently doing that with fly fishing as well. I'm very interested in fly fishing. Again, I did so much fishing, and then when I went fly fishing the first time, very similar from going from compound to trad shooting, I was like, oh, there's something really special happening here. And so now I'm really excited about fly fishing. So I went and worked at a couple fly fishing camps this spring to help out. And, next thing you know, it's after dinner and there's a guide there and I'm out at the water and he's like, oh, you know what? You need to adjust your cast this way. And it's like, cool. Anything I can get to have someone who's mastered this skill to be able to, help me out and learn.
And you're in a great state for fly fishing. Washington's got some really great fishing up there.
Oh, yeah. The first time I went fly fishing was in Oregon, actually, on the Deschutes River. And I caught the most epic, beautiful brown trout. And it was one of those things that the person who was with me was like, I've been fishing this river for so long, and this beautiful brown trout you just caught is like a dream, and I get these beginner first luck moments. Like,
then you're hooked. You're like, this is so easy.
I'm like,
what?
What's the deal?
You guys can't do this? This is so easy.
Totally.
Yeah, fly fishing is one of those things that I really enjoy it because for me, similar to hunting, you can make it very adventurous, like pack in your fly rod. And we went up to a lake yesterday that was like, 10-mile hike. And, you get up to this alpine lake. There's no one there. There was just mountain goats and marmots. Yeah. And you're just like out in the wild. And it's like such a unique experience. Because I grew up fishing every day of my life in Ohio. And it was like, you just kind of at a lake or a pond and you're just trying to catch bass, which was fine. But the adventure fly fishing is what's really interesting to me.
Oh, yeah, I bet. And I have really yet to do that. I mean, I just got back from a nine-day wilderness immersion that I led actually out at the Survival University campus. But next level will be bringing some, fishing gear and adding that into the process.
So tell me about that 9-day course you guys just did. What was the title of the course?
It was a 9-day Colorado wilderness immersion.
Very cool. So you're kind of covering all the basic survival skills then?
Yeah, so what we did is we broke it down, and the first 3 days was your basic wilderness survival class up at the main campus here in Cripple Creek, Colorado. So we're at about 9,400 feet, and we're bringing people up, and it's 3 days of learning the basics of, different fire lays, processing tinder that you can harvest in the wild, being able to put fire, shelter, water together. And then after that, we did a 3-day remote backpacking hike. So we're kind of teaching those who came on board to, what to pack, how to pack, what's needed to be off trail and backcountry camping. So that was part of the course as well, is just making sure everyone had the right, setup and that they were prepared to do that. They had already taken the 3-day wilderness survival, so we really get into, the kind of the concepts as well of as far as the awareness needed to be present out there and make sure your needs are met and that you're acting, in a way that covers your ass, really, and then we do this beautiful backpacking experience where we're traveling. We get down from 9,400 feet down to about 7,000 feet. And so, it's quite a descent, but we're, crossing rivers and, hunting for picking up crawdads and cooking them over the fire and harvesting cattail rhizomes and any wild plants along the way for trailside snacks and setting up camp at night and just kind of guiding that process. And then we end up at this beautiful river camp where we can add in some skills too, like basket making made out of willow and hand fishing. Not that we, it's the process of teaching them how to do that. So,
right.
And so I think it's a really cool program. Next year we'll do it again as well, but I think I'm going to bring it down more to 6 days. I think 9 days was a bit intense for some people who were really just getting started with this.
Interesting. Yeah.
So we're gonna adjust a little bit, have it be a 6-day course with a 2-day process at camp to kind of get everybody ready, teach those basics. But as we're backpacking and traveling for those 3 days, we'll be bringing in some of the skills, doing them, living them.
Yeah.
And then when we get to the end of the hike, finish with a big finish line and then head out to Cripple Creek for elk burgers and French fries and
Sweet.
beers and milkshakes.
What was I guess let me back up. Is there a requirement in terms of like physical fitness or ability that you require people to prove before joining the course?
Nothing about proving a certain physicality. However, I called everybody who, and I called everyone who signed up to just check in with them to
Sure.
make sure, like, here's the deal. You got to carry a backpack that's going to have, potentially 40 pounds, maybe. It's got your 3 days worth of food in there, your sleeping system, your water filtration system, river shoes, so you got to be able to carry that. And we don't hike a huge hike. It's not like we're maybe doing 5 miles at most in a day. So, and we're not going up massive mountains like inclines or anything. So I think it's doable for people, but I certainly would just want to check in to make sure physically that that's something that feels appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just one offering. I mean, they can also come and just do the skills weekend training.
Gotcha.
And not do the hike portion. So we're gonna market it as 2 separate things or one together, where you can either do the skills training, you can add on the hike. But there's plenty of classes going on that doesn't require a hike, that you can get all this stuff no matter where you're at physically.
Yeah, I think that's a big concern for a lot of folks, is that physicality standpoint.
Yeah.
And for some folks, it might be like, for me in the beginning, my first couple courses, that was part of the draw. I wanted to go to big mileage courses that went really deep in the backcountry, and I wanted to challenge my body. And I know that's where some people are, but some people are probably like, I'm not interested in that. I want the skills, I want the connection, and I want to enjoy the experience and not feel like I'm suffering the entire time.
Absolutely. And I'm just a really sensitive human, so I'd really check in with the group. Every group's different, and some groups you can kind of feel that this is about connection and giving them this experience of outdoor immersion. Some people, you can tell they're like, I'm maxed out. I'm like really feeling tired at the end of 3 days. That was enough for me. And so then there's this ease to be like, I had mentioned to you before we started talking here, it's like, I'd rather have people finish a course strong, feeling like that was epic. I feel great. I feel energized. I feel lifted, than feel like I broke them down and that they're just depleted and that was too much, you know? So,
which is different than a lot of survival schools. A lot of schools, it's like, push people to their absolute limit, and their reward is kind of, finishing and getting through that.
Yeah.
And I would be curious to know what the return rate is on your philosophy versus like beating people down. I would assume that people are more likely to come back to something that seemed uplifting.
Well, similar to how you mentioned when you got started, it's like you'd rather do those long mileage, like go hard and finish like, wow, like I just did this epic thing for my body was challenged. There's people like that out there who like to go to those types of programs where they see the extreme of what their body can handle and what they can do, and that's their reward. But that wouldn't be my class. That just wouldn't be my course.
Yeah. And I think you need both.
Sure.
I think you gotta have a place for everyone, because I certainly know that My style of travel is not the same as, somebody else's style of travel.
Right.
We all kind of
Yeah.
have this different idea of what a cool adventure looks like.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love it when people leave and they're just like, one of the things we did on this 3-day wilderness, the first part of the 9-day, the first 3 days was just your skills training. And at the very end, the last class, we do a challenge. And this is, again, the founder, Jason, this is his idea, but I love it, where you take everything we've learned. And on this last trip we just did, there was this thunderstorm coming in. Like they do here in Colorado.
Right.
It's like every day, but
Every day.
this where it was just about 3:00. Of course, the clouds are starting, ominous dark clouds are coming in, and you hear the thunder rolling, and
Yep.
and then we're like, okay, challenge. You're going to go and harvest tinder. You're going to make a fire, make an emergency shelter, and boil water, and you've got 30 minutes to go do that.
Wow.
And it's like you see their eyes just like right now, like really. And it's like, you got this,
You got it.
And it was actually really cool to see that these things we just simply taught in 3 days, you see them, they're like, they put their shamag on and they're out gathering their ladder fuel and their dried grass, and you hear the thunder come in and getting closer, so you feel them like, moving a little quicker, and building that pressure, that sense of this is like a for real vibe, like
Yeah.
this is what it would feel like if you were on your own for the night and it's 3:00 in the afternoon, you find yourself lost off trail, or there's an injury or something you need to do to set up fire, shelter, boil water.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that, watching that they all now know how to do it, and then they all can do it, and they do it really well. And then I, of course, take photos and videos of them at the end, and you just see these people with smiles to hear, because now the rain's just starting to come down and they're inside their little expedient shelter and they're kicked back, and and they've got their fire and they're boiling water, and they're so proud and so
Yeah.
happy, and like, whoa, I can do this. This is cool to take it from training to a challenge that's easily done, and watch them light up, just so
incredible.
excited at how they feel with that accomplishment. It makes me so happy.
It is
Yeah.
incredible, especially I feel like, especially with fire, like when fire starts to really click for people, it's such an exciting moment. Like you can see what's happening, you can see it working in front of you, and everyone's just like, let's go.
Yeah, totally.
excited.
And everyone does different, there was some were making their fire dog lay, some were making little log cabins, and and it's just cool to see. I think the cool thing about wilderness training is that a lot of people like the formula. They want to know how do you do this? And you teach basic skills of how to do this, but when it comes down to when they don't have an instructor right around them telling them what to do, it comes down to creativity. Like truly you get to create what it is you're doing here, and you can choose your own path. It's a very much choose your own adventure kind of thing. When you get basic skills, then it's like, I love to see what people come up with. Sometimes they surprise me where I'm like, hey, that was a good idea.
Yeah. So many times I'm like in a course and I'm learning. I'm like, oh, I never even thought
Didn't
to do
think
it
of
that
that.
way.
Yeah,
The way he
absolutely.
laid that stick, or the way he used his knife to do something. I'm like, I would have never crossed my mind.
Yeah, the creative component is, this is not like wilderness immersion, wilderness skills, wilderness survival is not like baking using a recipe.
Right.
It is like you get to be creative with
You
your process.
get to, and you must.
Yes.
You must be creative.
True.
Because like, if it's like the number one tool, if you're not able to creatively solve problems with very few resources, it's not going to work out.
Absolutely.
You're not going to want to stay out there. You're going to be miserable.
Yeah, and we include that in I always add that piece into the training, is this idea of leadership mindset. And I always give a pretty strong talk about that. That's like, if you've come out and you're taking this course, you're already like far above most people who are going out for a day hike. You already know more things right now than most people out mushroom foraging, as far as the awareness of your environment and what's possible, and then also how to mediate problems, or how to make sure you're mitigating. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Make sure you are not, that you got the gear you need to stay a night if you got to stay a night, or you've got a bug out bag, or you've got a 72 hour kit. So you can either be sit in one spot and be found, or you can get out and get to help. So I think it's just, to when you have those things down, then you have to understand now you're a leader out here. You are actually no more than most. You'll be the one who's going to make decisions when your friends are like, come on, we're going to go day hike today. And you bring a little extra, your bag's a little bit bigger than everybody else's. It's like, you're going to possibly need to be making decisions for that group. If a bad storm comes in or one person gets injured and you got to hunker down through a bad storm or an injury, you'll know what to do.
Yeah.
And you got to rise up to that leadership. And I love working with youth with that. That's like one of my favorite things, is teaching young people that just because you're out with adults, because you've taken this class, you know more than most of them.
Yeah.
And so you'll need to step into the role of leadership and feel good in your being to do that, to make decisions. And if someone's doing something that doesn't feel right, or they're involved, outdoor adventures are awesome. But sometimes you're out with people and they do stupid shit.
Yeah.
Or want to go do stupid shit. And you're like, you have to be the leader that says that doesn't feel right. It doesn't sit right in my gut. So I add that piece into my classes, as far as, I bring in my yoga training for that it's like this mindfulness piece of feeling your senses. Do sensory training, train your eyes, train your ears, train what it feels like to smell certain things. Be in the outdoors just to feel and be mindful and to be present. You'll develop all of these things. And as these things become more acute, your gut, your intuition will start to also awaken and have more to give, because you'll start to trust yourself. Yeah. And that piece, I think, is really important for outdoor leaders and outdoor anyone kind of who's leading or guiding in the outdoors, to be able to speak to that, because it's what's needed probably more than anything, is for people to trust themselves and to show up in that leadership role.
Yeah, and it's something that you would never get in a traditional education, right?
Yeah,
like
too bad.
Yeah, traditional education, I feel like it's like X's and O's. Like you know, even if you go to a lot of schools to learn, you might learn what plants you can eat and what kind of shelters are possible, but you might not learn those soft skills. And those are the ones that really end up making a difference.
Absolutely, because you hear about things all the time where there's people survive, you're like, woman hiker found 3 weeks later, and she has no training, but somehow she's kept herself alive, and that is an interesting thing to me. It's like, she used some very obviously, she was dialed in enough to herself and to what she needed to do to stay alive, that she did. And there's so many countless stories like that. And then there's people who don't make it, you know, and you're like, what, some maybe luck's out there, but I'm sure there's something about common sense and listening to your intuition. And I think it's a worthy training.
When I think about those like stories that are pitched as unfortunate, like woman hiker missing for 3 days, like, oh my gosh, poor lady. I'm like, no, she just got this incredibly empowering thing. Like, she's coming home feeling like, I just survived something that most people can't. And she gets to carry that onto the rest of her life.
Yeah.
She gets to have that.
Absolutely.
What an amazing thing to take with you.
Absolutely. And, there's one other piece that I feel drawn to mention, because I am, like you said, there's hard skills. So once you learn them, you can do a lot more adventure.
Sure.
When you learn hard skills, you can do a lot more cool stuff out there. When you then bring on the soft skills and you add that piece in, now your experience is richer. You can go have these adventures. You can, you can get maybe out of some tough things because you have hard skills, and you've got this other piece that you're working on that lets you to have a deeper, more profound experience in the outdoors. And then I think there's this other piece, which is also the energetics of the outdoors. And that's something I'm really starting to kind of have more, my mind's there a lot, my heart's there a lot, as far as what we feel out there. I have had some experiences where I realize nature is highly intelligent. I'm sure you've experienced this in all of your time in the outdoors. There is intelligence going on. These are not inanimate objects this is like an entire energy system, energy grid, communication going on, so much to feel. And the more that, and for me, actually, it was a massively high dose of mushrooms that got me there, that I was like, whoa, and it was, led by a beautiful human that helped me to see more. I specifically went into that wanting to understand more about the natural world, and came out of that going, gosh, there's what our eyes are not seeing this. Maybe our ears aren't hearing this, but we can feel this. And so I really, when I'm teaching, I'm starting to bring that into the group dynamic. Is, I have people go out and do sit spots, and to sit and to feel and to listen and come back. It's like, what did you feel? You tell me, like, what was that like when you spent some quiet time out there? Because I think there's something that our ancestors had, which is a much better understanding. They weren't just day hikers who are like, got their REI on every weekend. They were like, obviously there was so much more dynamic going on. There was so much more ceremony, so much more ritual around everything. And so it's like, why? What was up with that? And I want to understand that. This is probably where I'm at currently right now, is some of more of the energetics of what's going on. I'm starting to bring that in even in the coursework when we're way out. And, I don't just drop my backpack anywhere and say I'm setting up shop for tonight. I check in, like, how does this place feel? Like, I allow my presence to be known energetically. Am I welcome here? My intention in my heart is pure for training and understanding to bring people in nature. Is this a good spot for us to land tonight? I bring offerings. I do a lot more than I used to do because I've been kicked out. I've had some solos where I was like, whoa, that was intense, and felt not welcomed. And I didn't make that intention piece, and I didn't, I just kind of came in, rough and tumble, and just blah, 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 tarps up, and everything's loud. Then it's become more refined as far as the energetics of.
And sometimes it's tough because that takes a lot of mental acuity. And a lot of times when you're out, you're drained, you're hungry, you're tired, you're wet, and you're like, I just want to splay and lay out on the ground. I don't have the mental fortitude to be intentional about where I'm sitting and what I'm walking on. And sometimes it can be difficult to like remain mindful when your body and soul are being put to the test.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I've been there.
It's hard.
Totally. But it's not like it takes some, massive ritual, you know what I mean? It's as simple as feeling, listening, and having a moment of intention and a sense of feeling the place. And it's not, to me, I realize this isn't something I have to now go do A, B, C, D, E. Now I've officially, done my correct ritual to land in a place. Like, it is, we have what we have in the moment that we have it. And maybe that's very little energy. And I think intention is everything. So it's like very simple to just, give what you have.
Mine is often a thing of like, who lives here? I just like, whenever I'm going somewhere, I just go like, who lives here? And weirdly, like 3 times in the last year or so, I've had a situation where I found a really good camp. And this is not all in the same place. Once in Utah, once here at a river, and once in a cave. 3 different times I did my kind of like, who lives here? I'd like survey this spot. And 3 times, right where perfect bed, 3 times, tons of mountain lion scat, tons of like overwhelming amounts of like, you can't even try to ignore it. And I was like, all right, I guess I don't live here. The mountain lion lives here, and
Absolutely.
I'm going to go find somewhere else.
Absolutely. And that's an awareness piece, as that's such a great part of the awareness piece.
Yeah. We like the same beds.
Yeah, sure.
That's what I mean.
And same thing with certain, putting up your shelter on trails, or, it's like, if we're walking it, so are the animals.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those things like that those kinds of things, like you have a really good way of articulating those things, because I don't even bring those up often unless I'm in the bush. I can't really explain those, but you did a really good job of
words.
Yeah, you did a really good job of articulating like what that means to find a spot at the end of the night and understand that there is a lot living and breathing all around you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very different kind of feeling. It's not like you're renting a hotel room,
Correct.
You're
Yeah.
you're living with
Yeah.
a bunch of other things for the night.
Yeah, you're coming into someone else's home.
Sure.
And so I think that's, on many levels, this is where the animals are living. There is probably major history and to where you might be putting up shelter for the night as far as, again, like this ancestral history of that particular site or what's going on there. Here in Colorado, there's a lot of mines and there's a lot of interesting I have felt things out there that I'm like, I don't think I'm going to set up camp here. Like, this is
There's
just
a
not
lot of
the
dark
spot.
history.
Yes.
There is a lot of dark history here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the first nights I had in Colorado, I actually, the night I got handed my tarp and some rope and or some paracord and was like, go set up shelter. I went to this really cool spot, and everything looked really good just visually. It's like, oh, here's a really nice spot to land for the night. It was right on top. There was a mine. Like, I was like right on a mine, basically. And it was one of the worst sleeps of my life. It was like void. There was so much I felt that night that was weird that next day I woke up and I was like, and exit scene where I'm out. This is not where I'm going to be setting up. And I keep having to learn this over and over, just when I think I'm like, I know what I'm doing. And then I get so humbled and I'm like, oh, got it. There's so much more to learn.
I have one interesting one. I don't know if I've ever shared this because, I don't know, it's not something I usually talk about, but we were down in the Chihuahua Desert and there was, we were getting ready to teach a couple weeks of skills courses. And we had, those couple days beforehand where you're setting up and it was just instructors. And this area, the Chihuahua, is the only place in the world where peyote grows natively. It can be like grown in other places, but it's really hard. It takes some like 30 years to cultivate. So the entire population of this plant lives like in this small area of the desert. And, I was kind of looking around trying to make sure that I didn't, it's a cactus also. I think it's a cactus. I don't think you want to lay on it. But that night, for whatever reason, I was sleeping with Willow, who you met, and there's a bunch of coyotes out. It was an awesome night. And we went to bed. This massive gust of wind, it's the desert, there's no wind all night. Massive gust of wind comes over my tent, basically like almost flips it. Like a super strong gust of wind. Willow freaks out, and I just like get this older woman like kind of that like goes over top of me. And Willow's like going crazy, which made it for me that much more real.
For sure.
I was like, whoa, she just saw that too. And then, the next day I was like, I'm going to move camp.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm going to camp somewhere else.
Sometimes those lessons are so intense like that.
Oh my gosh.
And they're so real. And my advice to people, and that's such a great example of that, is like, this is real stuff. This is not your imagination. This is not, if you feel it, if you feel off, if you feel, if the elements start to talk to you, listen to those whispers of the wind, because they're communicating with you.
Sure.
And it's there because there's a relationship there. It's not nature's not trying to be an asshole. Nature's communicating. It's just, yeah.
You can't put your finger on it. Like,
that's right.
You don't
it's
necessarily know what it is.
It's just, that's why I think it's just so important that it's the hard skills, it's the soft skills, it's the leadership part. But there is something to bringing what our, when we look back at humans of how they got us here and the things they were doing, we must look back and say, why did they do certain things? What was ceremony going on around the fire? Why do we have medicine men, and why did they go to the other side into spirit realm? And what was that point? Coming back with what information? So there's just so much to look at and say, okay, here we are, all of us all rewilding, in this modern day, but it's like that there is something here for us to, I don't think this is about returning to the past.
Sure.
I'm not saying we need to return and be like that, but there's lessons to be learned. And I don't, I think just being very open. And when you have experiences like that, I think, which is some of the benefit of the solo work out there,
Absolutely,
is like you are going to get the coolest lessons ever, and they will apply to absolutely everything. You can bring that back into the front country for sure.
I think about things that happen during my solos on a weekly basis, like different random things I either learned or pain I went through. And a lot of people I've heard say like, okay, the solo adventurer is like, it's a made up thing by Western society because all of our ancestors moved in groups, which I agree for living. But all those folks also were doing solo rituals. There is something so challenging but also rewarding about solo stuff. And I almost can't put my finger on it. And that's why I'm always seeking out the solo stuff, because I know it's going to be hard, but I'm also like, I know there's going to be something I get from this.
Absolutely. And when I finished that 7-day solo last summer,
was that in Colorado?
Yeah, that was here in Colorado.
That's a long solo.
Yeah,
7 days is for real.
It was so for real.
Yeah.
There's so much there. It's so rich. But what I know is that on my last day, I had everything. All my needs were met. It was so simple. It was like I had routine set up. I had overcome some pretty gnarly fear stuff that came up because we had on night 2 one of the biggest storms that came in. That, I mean, even our instructor was like, that was a bad one. I mean, it was a for real survival situation. We had hours and hours of rain. The lightning and thunder was right over us. And I had a moment where I was terrified. I even did a little video for my kids, where I was like, boys, your mom loves you. And I'm just like, I'll see you soon, but I'm scared. I mean, it was really, really intense. And after about 3 hours of that, of me just hovering and, holding all this tension and a few tears and feeling like this is the scariest thing I've ever been in. There was a point where I was like, it was the cool switch over. It was like, okay, I don't know how much longer this is going to go on, but my nervous system actually is like what, there's
You're
nothing
depleted.
else I can do.
Yeah.
Like this is completely out of my control. And so there is a switch that happened. And I was like, what if I just went to a different part of my brain where this is not, I've already seen the worst of it here, here 3 hours later, I'm still here. What am I actually afraid of? None of this is in my control. So there's nothing more I can do. So there is a switch happening in my brain that we're going to do right now, which is I am going to celebrate that I am here witnessing nature at one of its most grand moments. Most people will never get to be in the eye of a storm at this level by themselves and embrace what I'm witnessing. This is what we're living for, those alive moments that are not manufactured, and this was like the most alive I'd ever felt because every sense on my body was just like, heightened. And so it switched. And then I was like, the next big one that came through, I was like, woo, bravo. I started clapping. I started smiling. I started laughing. I must have been like a crazy hag witch out there. Like, I mean, if someone were to just walk up, I was, cackling out there. It became this kind of celebration I was having, that I was witnessing life at this extreme, energy. And it changed everything. And then I rode out the storm brilliantly because it became like I stopped worrying that I wasn't going to sleep that night, and I stopped worrying that it's like this is actually going to just be exciting, and and it was a different part. Like it's almost like the neurons in my brain were like, we're going to bounce from here in this path over to a totally new path that you are not aware of yet, which is celebrating this. And then I the next morning coming out of that storm, I was like, I am a different person than I was yesterday, because now I know how to take fear and turn it into being in awe of our natural world, and that it it was overcoming fear. It was exceptional. And that I can apply that to so many different things. I mean, there's some things that happen that we need to have fear centers to make better choices or get ourselves out of a situation. And then there's nothing I can do. I am here in a moment. I'm going to change how I view this and how I interact with this. And that I've been different since that moment. So
Wow.
those solo journeys are epic for what's possible.
Yeah, and it's hard to articulate it in a lot of ways, but again, I think you do a really good job. But that way you decipher between, am I able to control this situation or is it out of my control? Because like you were saying, fear can be good if it's signaling to you, okay, I can control that, I need to walk my happy ass out of here. But if it's out of your control and you're just like, okay, I'm no longer going to worry about it. I don't know that I have the mental fortitude to have that, but I would definitely like to give that a go. That sounds like
do.
a special
we
experience.
all have the mental fortitude to do it. It's like just given the opportunity to be in it. I know you do really well.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's one thing that I've been thinking about a lot, because this 2-week trip that I start this week is high elevation for 14 days in a row and sleeping on top of the mountains during monsoon season. So a lot of people that are up there now have been getting buzzed. So it's like a lot of the rocks are charged and you're kind of sleeping up on like charged rocks. So lightning is like one of the top concerns.
Wow.
So I'll definitely be thinking about you when I'm up there.
Wow.
Deciding what to
Amazing
do.
that is what you're drawn to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I really wish you well on your journey there, and I think, I don't know. I think there's something to intention, the heart work of all of it, and helping you through those tough things on those journeys. I think there's something there.
What's next for Wildkind Academy?
Oh, for Wildkind Academy, I'm actually taking, I personally am heading to Maui for the next month.
Sweet.
I know. And I'm going to take a personal creative reprieve. I've been going hard for about a year, just nonstop in the outdoors and doing all this stuff. I'm going, but I feel like I'm kind of at a pace that is, my creative side has been kind of, pushed down because I'm in go mode. So I'm going to Maui to swim in the ocean, talk to the ocean, heal in the ocean, do some yoga, have some inward quiet time. And I'm going to see what creative kind of flow starts happening, because I'm going there to create what's next for Wildkind Academy. But I want to do it, and I'm blessed with I used to live there, so I have dear friends and family, and they were like, come stay at my house and house sit while I'm out of town I have an opportunity to be there, which I'm very grateful for. But it's I'm going to go there to have a reprieve, and I think I'm learning that that's an important piece on the creative factor. Every time I try to make decisions as a business owner, as Wildkind Academy, from a place of push, get the next class out, do this thing. I need to go here for money. I need to go there to make money. I'm learning these lessons in, like double time right now, that it seems like I'll get sick, something goes wrong. Like it just feels like the flow's been a little bit off if I'm not creating from a more centered, mindful place. So I have some big dreams and ideas that are starting to brew of really where I want to take this in the next year in the course offerings. But this piece comes first.
Amazing.
Yeah.
For folks that want to learn more, where's the best place to find you?
The website is wildkindacademy.com. I would urge them to just become a subscriber to my newsletter, because I'm always putting out what the next course offerings are for each month. And on Instagram, personally, I'm Wildkind Jess, and I share a lot of my outdoor adventures there. I do a lot with videos so that I can share what's up and what I'm doing, and promote the joy of the outdoors. And then I also on Instagram is just Wildkind Academy, where I show just what we're doing in courses and such. I'm on TikTok, Wildkind Jess, and Facebook, just my name, Jessica Caldwell.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing all that wisdom and letting us know a little bit about what you've been up to. That was a lot of fun for me.
Thanks, Ryan. It was so cool to come out here to Colorado and know that you're here. I've been following along some of your journey and appreciated some of the guests you've had on. You're a great host, and you
thank
ask
you.
very thoughtful questions and have really engaging, cool guests. So it's a real honor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. See you next time, guys. Stay wild.